Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to my deck profile. Today I want to share with you guys my list for set 12 Golden Frieza. It's an interesting one. It's one of the more interesting archetypes coming out of set 12. You know, at this point we've seen a lot of the stuff has to deal with, you know, life flipping up and down. This leader doesn't take damage like normal, so that plays a whole part in it. There's a lot of really weird and interesting moving parts of this deck that I will explain to you guys. This will also pretty much take up our, you know, archetype discussion video we normally do, because I'm giving you a deck profile. This pretty much encapsulates every single card in the archetypes. We're doing a catch-all in that sense, so we'll just get into it. Guys, if you're new here, definitely subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss a video. If you want to help the channel out, go down in the description, many links there that will help out, particularly today, guys. Go check out the Patreon if you want to get prepared for some of the upcoming events, especially as we go into the new year. That being said, let's get started. So the leader, what's it do? Lots of weird stuff. So, okay, on the unawakened side, you are a 5k leader. You are very small. Permanent, if all of your life is face up, you lose the game. When you take damage, flip cards in your life face up equal to the damage taken instead. That is shared on both sides. Permanent cards in your life can be flipped up face up by mono yellow card skills, and you can't add face up cards in your life to your hand. That is also shared on the awakened side. Auto, when you play this card in your leader area, you activate one cutting edge recovery device from your deck. We will talk about that. That card is incredibly important in this deck. Awaken, with life 5 or less, choose one of your field cards and place it in the battle area, and then flip this leader over. On the backside, besides those permanents, he also says activate battle once per turn. Place one card from your life in your drop area, draw one card, and this card gets plus 5,000 power and double strike. So on first glance, that seems very, very bad, because, you know, why would you crit yourself a life just to draw a card and gain double strike? Unless you're going for gain, that would be the only reasonable scenario in like a normal deck building perspective, right? But a lot of this stuff has to do with putting face up life in the drop area, and this leader is an inherent source of that. So the field card is really what's crazy about this deck, and it's a whole book on there, so you could figure that, right? So it's a barrier field card. For whatever reason, they felt like they had to put barrier on it. I guess this deck just literally can't play, which is true. It can't really play if your field card somehow gets answered. So auto once per turn, when a card in your life is flipped face up, choose one of your opponent's cards and switch it to rest mode. So keep in mind, that's how we're taking damage. Our life's getting flipped face up, so when we take damage, we tap a card, a leader, a unison, an energy, a battle card. That is a really, really solid effect. Activate main once per turn if all of your energy is mono yellow, and you choose one card in your life and one yellow Frieza Army card in your battle area and place them in your drop area. You draw two, then you choose one mono yellow Frieza card or unison and place it in your life face up. So this is our main draw engine, right? Our leader on the front side does not draw, but this is basically those draws that we're missing. So you can look at it in such a way as your leader does draw. It's very much akin to the old school like Lemon Lime Frieza, in that you need a lot of one drop Frieza clans to sacrifice in order to get your pluses, which again is how that older leader pretty much operates. So they've kept that theme here with Frieza Army stuff, as in, you know, you got to play a lot of one drops, you got to cycle through them, sacrifice them to get certain effects. This leader is very similar in that regard. So the activate main / battle here on the bottom, if you have 3 or more face-up cards in your life and you place this card in its owner's drop area, you may flip your leader card to its backside. If you do, place top card of your deck in your life face up. So that's a little bit of a weird thing, because you do kind of get an extra life, but it comes in face up, so it doesn't really, you know, count in terms of saving you from taking additional damage. But there is a way in this deck to flip your life face down, which that can become relevant later. But once again, there are cards in the deck that they work when they're face up in your life, so it's not the worst thing. It's really good to awaken via the field cards effect, more so than your leader's effect. But if you are getting rushed really fast, you know, that is the option you guys can use there. So anyways, moving along, we're playing a ton of one drops in this build, like I mentioned before. So Sorbet, Commander, Frieza Forces. I remember like set 10, they first started printing cards like this. This is basically a one drop that looks at the top 5, adds a Frieza Army of a cost 3 or less, or a 2-drop unison. They printed ones in set 10 like the Bulwark that only search for Trunkses and blue unisons, and they were like way too specific. This still is kind of very specific, but you know, it searches a broader range of cards, which is nice. This one has an added activate main. As long as you have the field card in play and your leader's a yellow Frieza Army, you can play it from the drop with its skills negated. So as long as you see one copy of Sorbet, you always have a target for your field card to cycle out and draw 2 and replace a life. So that is really good there. It's a nice thing they added that, because like I said, these cards in the past have been very, very lackluster and not quite worth playing because they don't have a lot of reach. They're very narrow in their application. So Tagoma, Cold as Ice, one of our other really important one drops, but not quite the one you want to see on turn 1 because of activate main. But anyways, one drop, when you play it, you draw 1. The activate main is a really good part here. If your leader is yellow Frieza Army and you have 2 or more energy, that's why you don't really want it super early. You have to have 2 or more energy. You place one face-up card from life in your drop area and send this card from your drop area to your warp. You may choose one mono yellow Frieza Army card or mono yellow unison card in your hand, put it in your life face up. If you do, draw 1, then you can't use activate mains on this card for the turn. So you want it a little bit later, like turn 2, turn 3, but it is free out of the drop area, which is great. This deck is pretty energy hungry, which you'll see how we've built the deck to kind of complement that, but the deck is very energy hungry, so having that free ability to do that is very good. It's very much like your field card. It cycles out in the same way. Gets 1 less draw, but it doesn't require you to sacrifice anything, so it kind of evens out there. Getting you 1 last body change. Playing this card feels so good. So 1 drop auto, if your leader card is a yellow Frieza army card, and you place 1 face-up card from your life in the drop area, draw 2. So a 1 drop that draws 2, and keep this in mind, right? Like, putting a life in the drop area, in this deck, it's not quite the same as critting a life, because that life that's face up in your life is not getting put into your hand in any way. So using that life as a resource to draw 2 does feel quite strong, and plus there are cards that when you kill them out of your life, you get to play them, so that this card is basically an enabler in that sense. Auto, when one of your opponent's cards switch to rest mode by one of your skills, this card gains blocker for the turn. So another way to be defensive. You do very much want to be defensive in this deck till about turn 5, turn 6, and then go in. So getting the added blocker there is quite good. So overall, you're looking for Sorbet turn 1, turns 2 and 3, you're looking for Tagoma and Ginyu. So just want to let you guys know that. Hard mulligan for Sorbet for sure. Next up, getting you new transformation. You also want a hard mulligan for your unison here. That's one of the things with these new unisons. They're very, very important to their decks, but let's just read it. So he has rejuvenate. You take away 4 markers. You put a card from him under him in the drop area. You get to add a life on the top of your deck into your life pool. Auto, if your leader card is a yellow and all of your energy is mono yellow, when this face-up card in your life is placed in your drop area, if you don't have a unison card in play, you may play this card from your drop area with a marker on it. So you can get this guy out really, really early with a marker on it, and you don't have to pay energy. Like in playtesting this deck, I think maybe once, like, or even maybe possibly never, I've never really hard casted this guy for 2. You always want to get him into play via that auto right there, and it is relatively easy to do it. You just have to draw him or find him with Sorbet. Again, Sorbet only being a top 5 search does make that a little bit tough, but it is doable, pretty consistent in most games. And then the +1 here, activate main. You may place 1 face-up card from your life under this card. If you do, choose 1 mono yellow battle card in your hand, place it in your life face up, then draw 1. So essentially, like, he doesn't really hard plus, but he does cycle a card, and he puts important cards you need into your life that we will see in just a bit. Shisumi, Frieza Force Elite, this is our super combo. As long as we have a Unison Rejuvenate in our Unison area, this is a draw 1 10k, which is great. But again, it is very conditional on seeing your Unison, which is one of the downsides to it. But when we do see it early, it's incredibly good, especially considering our leader is pretty small on the unawakened side. Next up, we have Frieza, same stuff, different day. He's a counter attack. To get the attack, play this card. Permanent, if your leader is a yellow Frieza army card and this card is face up in your life, you can pay this card's energy cost and activate this card's counter skill from your life. Really wish they would have just said you could do it for free, but maybe that would have been a little bit too busted. But like I said, this deck is very energy hungry, but this card is really good. It's one of those cards you're going to want to put into your life pretty often because, again, you do need to be defensive until about turn 5, turn 6 in this deck, and this is one of the ways that you're able to do that. So moving along, this is basically our Frieza engine here, right? So we have Frieza the Onslaught Begins, and we have Frieza Trained at Last. Both of these share the auto that say if your leader card is a yellow Frieza army card and all of your energy is mono yellow, when this face-up card in your life is placed in your drop area, play this card from your drop area for 1 yellow. So they both get played in that way, basically by being critted when they're the face-up card in your life. Then the Onslaught Begins has an auto that says if it's your turn when this card's played, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost of 4 or less in rest mode and KO it. Again, really small tweak. I wish they would have allowed this to be on both players' turns because there are ways you can play this during your opponent's turn. But once again, maybe that would have been too busted, but they are trying to fix one of the problems with yellow in terms of, you know, a lack of removal. This card does offer you that. Unfortunately, it just doesn't offer you removal on bigger battle cards, but we have removal for bigger battle cards. We'll see in just a second. Frieza Trained at Last is actually a super strong card. If your leader is a yellow Frieza army card and you place 1 face-up card from your life in the drop area, when your opponent plays a battle card, you switch to rest mode and then you draw a card and negate this skill for the turn. So basically having a free Crusher Ball that draws 1, as long as you have a face-up life, that's really, really strong. I have run into some scenarios where I didn't quite have access to a face-up card in my life because this deck does have to cycle through those cards relatively fast, but your field spell does help out a lot with that, basically by allowing you to put cards into your life face up. So you got to make sure you're cycling that every single turn to get the opportunity to. Frieza Divine Transformation, we have a 5-drop. So this is the main guy you are basically stalling to turn 5 for. We're playing 3 copies. Deflect, Double Strike, Blocker. Permanent, this card can't be removed from your battle area by your opponent's skills, so he does have great protection. Auto, if your leader card is yellow, when this card's played, choose all your opponent's battle cards in rest mode, KO them, and flip one face-up card and your life face down. So that's basically like a rejuvenation effect in this deck, because your face-up life is basically damage that you've taken. So putting that back face down is the way to essentially say I'm rejuvenating, getting a life back that my opponent has to go through to beat me, basically. At the end of the turn, switch this card to active mode. So every single end phase, he goes back to active mode. That's where the blocker gets great value, but also you swing with him for double strike. Big double strike. It's really good. Auto once per turn. When your opponent activates a counter skill, at any time really too, not even when this guy attacks, at any point activate a counter attack skill, choose up 2 of their cards, switch them to rest mode, and they can't be switched to active mode until the end of the opponent's next turn. So you get that lock on energy, again, on really any card you want or is applicable at that point. It is really solid. Stalling the turn 5 in this deck, a little bit tough if I'm being completely honest. A lot of the stuff is very energy heavy, which I did mention. It does get tough. When you do get to this guy, it does feel quite good. Moving along, 4 copies of Vegeta Primal Transformation. A lot of yellow decks don't play 4 copies of this. In this deck, again, we want to be stall, you want to be defensive. We get it early unison as early as turn 1 sometimes, so having this guy early is really good. Great at Operator's Warcry. Playing 2 copies, really the only source of pressure in this deck is your leader once you flip, which you don't flip for quite a while in this deck, and then your 5-drop, right? So I did want 2 copies of a card that would give me some additional pressure. Raider's Warcry does fill that role pretty well. 2 copies of Swift Retaliation Cooler. We get to turn 5, we play our 5-drop Frieza, we start, doing a lot of damage to our opponent, putting pressure on them. We go to our next turn and we use Cooler to, hopefully ensure the game. And then we're playing the secret rare Sin Shenron Negative Energy Incarnate. This deck, in case you haven't noticed, plays a ton of 1-drops. We even have more coming up in a second. So this guy ideally comes down turn 3 or 4. And when you get this guy down, getting to turn 5 becomes so much easier. We don't really want Celzino in this deck because, we have our 5-drop to basically put the pressure on and hopefully end the game. We just need to get there. So Sin Shenron does work out very nicely. And then next up, guys, for our extra card lineup, we have the 1 Cool Bullets, the 1 copy we're allowed to play. We're going to play it. 2 Tyrannical Blow. Decks like Red Broly could eat us alive because of how fast and how aggressive they are, so we want to have some type of interaction for that matchup. 1 Vegeta's Final Flash. It's a card that's become very popular in yellow decks, and your opponent has to respect it, has to play around it, so we're playing the 1 copy just to punish them when they don't. Fraternal Bonds. This is the negate I'm going with, and this is one of my problems with yellow in general, is that the negate lineup for yellow is not great. They're all very specific in their reach. Fraternal Bonds, I've liked it because you have the field card, you can always just switch to rest mode, get 2 battle cards rested, or 1 battle card rested while negating 1 attack is what I mean to say. And that does work out pretty nicely. But this could be Nimbus. I'm not huge on Nimbus right now because a lot of decks just get under it, and it doesn't really, prove to be all that effective. Time Magic's not bad against like Janemba, Green Gotenks, but again, pretty specific in its reach. You can try a number of yellow counterattacks here. Whatever you guys want to try, be my guest. So finally, guys, my thoughts on the deck and the archetype. I wouldn't say it's the strongest thing coming out of set 12. It is fun. It is cool for players that like Frieza themed decks. You're really doing what Frieza wants to do, just like manipulate the opponent and really just like beat them down, wear them out. It is cool that it's thematic in that sense. Getting the turn 5 against certain matchups, it is tough. And this is not the perfect list by any means. If you guys have text or suggestions, put them in the comments below. We can possibly refine this deck even further, and whatever we can do, guys, to get the turn 5 more efficiently, healthier, and get to our boss monster, it's gonna make or break this deck. So again, drop it in the comments below. I think this deck is cool. I think this deck is fun. Gonna be tough to compete in a pretty heavy aggro meta though. But again, let me know in the comments below what you think. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.